Hey everyone, James here. Hope you're well. I do apologize that I haven't been on the scene with videos for quite a few weeks now. It's been one nightmare after another, I won't lie, but essentially what had happened, which is what's caused the biggest problems for me, is that a month or so ago, I noticed a lot of leaking happening from the roof of my fish room, which essentially is a shed, a wooden shed. Progressively, it started from a few drips of water to quite a waterfall that was sort of coming through into the shed onto the floor. When I stripped the insulation from the ceiling, I realized that the problem was a lot bigger than I thought it was. Essentially, the wood on the shed roof had rotted and created a big hole in the roof. As you can see with the lights off and there's no electrics at the moment, this is the damage to the roof. I don't know if you can see here, there's just all black mold everywhere. There's just holes in it. We managed to patch up a few bits and pieces, but yeah, the roof was absolutely moldy as anything, and as you can see there, that's more of the main part of the damage, and it was just more of a concern that if I had that roof caved in. I've got lots of electrical items here. This is the last remaining part of my setup, which is currently there, and yeah, just empty floor space. I've had to rip off all the insulation, turn all the electrics off. Yeah, what a stressful time it was. The other problem I noticed was when I looked at the top of the shed, the felt on the shed roofing had actually worn really bad when setting up the fish shed. I hadn't ever checked the felt roofing since I moved into the house, so it's a bit of a mistake of mine to not have noticed that there was a big hole appearing in the top of the roof. Problem and worry for me was I have lights in there, I had all my fish tanks in there, and water was sort of coming in different ways, and I didn't know how long the shed was going to last in terms of the roof, and I was worried to hell that the roof would collapse and smash all my fish tanks. So what I had to do was go through a mad panic of switching all the electric off in the shed and then moving all of my tanks into my house. Now my house is absolutely full. I've got kids and it's just a busy house. It's not a massive one either. And so I had to clear loads of room in my conservatory and move all of my fish tanks bar one into the house again. And it was just such a mammoth task. It took me almost 2 days to do. Most of the tanks were over within the first day, thankfully. It was just more of the setting up the next day. I fell down the manhole cover in the garden as well, because I was emptying water into the drain and I forgot that the drain cover wasn't fully down and fell into that, which ended up cutting all my leg. And now I have a load of fish tanks in my conservatory again. Unfortunately, during the time I ended up losing loads of fish because I had to drain a lot of the water to lift the tanks into the house, and I didn't have a lot of time. It's not exactly like this time of year has been nice and sunny. It's been freezing cold, so I needed to get the tanks out and back into the house and then fill them up again. And obviously I was using cold water from the tap to fill up the tanks, and it was taking a lot longer for the tanks to heat up, so I think that caused a lot of stress on my fish, but there wasn't really too much I could do about it. But all's good now. They've been in the house for about a month now. As you can see here, I have a little conservatory corner of fish tanks and a TV. And yeah, the rest of my conservatory is an absolute mess. I've got boxes, there's my computer, which I used to work from home, and obviously I can't get to it, my printer, some boxes down there, and yeah, just trying to make this whole corner tight. The other side of my conservatory is full of toys and stuff for my kids, and so yeah, there's not a whole lot of room in this house. In terms of the fish, most of them I have still. Things are looking really good still. Got all my shrimp tanks, I've got my better fish there. My shallow tank, I had to move some fish into there temporarily. One of my lights broke down here, which was an absolute nightmare, so I've had to try and, well, I've only got one light working at the moment, but yeah, one of my bar lights went wrong. I noticed that I think all of my pea puffers have died. I think it was the stress of changing them over. All of my bumblebee gobies in this brackish tank are okay, and the mangrove trees thankfully are still okay. Then during all that time I came down really ill with a sinus infection, which has knocked me out for almost 3 weeks now. I'm just about at the end of it. So I've had a chance to finally be back on this planet. So now I can plan actually sorting the shed roof. Me and my father-in-law managed to rip the old roof off and put some tarpaulin on the top of it for now, but we need the wood to dry out before we can start replacing panels, because most of the shed roof is absolutely destroyed. Thankfully, the rest of the shed is actually really good condition. The walls of the shed and all that, well insulated enough and well protected enough from the elements that it hasn't caused too many problems. So I'm hoping that maybe in the sort of springtime that I can then start working back on the shed, putting a new roof on it, getting some new boards for it and stuff, and then insulating it again, and then finally get my fish back into the room. But for now, they are in my conservatory. But yeah, what an absolute nightmare it's been. Moral of the story is, make sure your shed roof is okay before you move all of your fish tanks into a shed and create a fish room. That's the most important thing. Make sure it's insulated. And then also, it's just a contingency in it. It's just making sure that you've got some place to put all of your fish. It is the one downside to having multiple fish tanks in a home. Obviously, when there's one that requires moving, it's just a nightmare to take them all down and, you know, move them to a new location, finding the space for them. It's stuff to bear in mind. Obviously, if you are planning on starting a fish room, it's just making sure that you've done all your prep work as much as you can before making that plunge to have loads of fish tanks. One other downside to having fish tanks in your conservatory, especially when it's not massively insulated, is then you get loads of condensation buildup and it causes loads of problems there. So I have to keep my windows open quite a lot and make sure that it's well ventilated, because if not, you get this problem, which is lots of water. Best case in the world, I become a millionaire and manage to open up my own build-in store, whatever it was, to have all of my tanks in there instead of having them all in a shed. But since I am not at that level of my life yet, yeah, the shed is about as best as I've got. Anyways, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know your bad experiences in the comments below, and hopefully I will be back to making more videos in the future. Until next time, you stay safe.